Okay, good evening, everyone. I hope everyone's well. Here we are live from Cheltenham this evening. Just get rid of my Cheltenham hat. So I hope everyone's well and enjoying a fabulous week of racing. We've got lots of people joined us this evening, which is fantastic. Now, a little bit of admin. Just for those of you that are joining perhaps for the first time, at the top right of your screen, you should see a button that says View. So that allows you to change the view that you're looking at. So you might see lots of people at the moment, or you might just be able to see me. And if you want to see lots more better looking people than me, you can change that view so that it says gallery view, or you can change it so it just says speaker view. So you just get an enlarged view of whoever's speaking. So that might be me, someone else asking some questions, or our guests this evening. And we've got a couple of fantastic guests lined up. So hopefully you can use your view button in the top right of the screen. At the bottom of your screen, you should have a reactions button, and that will allow you to put your hand up if you'd like to ask any questions or you'd like to get involved with the discussions this evening. And you'll also see down there the opportunity to chat. So if you want to ask any questions by typing them, then I'll try and get through as many of those as I can as well. So lots of ways to interact with the forum this evening. Now, although we're getting more and more used to these things, I must say I'm still not an expert on Zoom, and certainly not an expert on these presenting. So if you're joining us for the first time, you have to accept this is a very amateurish production, but we certainly do our best. So we've got a really good evening lined up tonight with a couple of very, very interesting guests indeed. And I'm sure we're all going to enjoy speaking to them. And I hope that you've got some questions lined up for them. I should just say that I apologise if I'm slightly slurring this evening. The reason is I actually spent the afternoon, well, I had to go to the dentist today. So I'm still feeling extremely, I think she overdid the injection, still feeling very, very numb here. But hopefully it'll wear off as evening goes on, because my appointment was actually at 2:30. Okay, what a fantastic couple of weeks we've had. I can just see, I'm on gallery view and I can just see Ket still laughing at that joke. Actually, wasn't it? I really did have an appointment at 2:30 today. But you can stop laughing now, you're putting me off. So last 2 weeks, wow, what a fantastic 2 weeks we've had. Mr. Muldoon has won, Ballybody has won, we've had some fantastic racing. We're going to have an excellent weekend. I can sense a winner coming on Saturday. And we've got we had two festival runners as well yesterday. And I know everyone, even those people that weren't involved specifically in those syndicates, were sort of following and supporting those horses, and really enjoyable. And talking of the festival, the Foxtrot Racing League is getting very, very exciting. So we had a fantastic entry. I think 47 people entered the Foxtrot Racing League on the Tote 10 to follow. The morning line is leading. Now, I don't know who these people are, but the morning line is leading. Festival Flyers is in second. And one of the reasons I wanted to make sure I mention this, because I am Festival Flyers at the moment, leading in second, and have the first and second favourite in the Gold Cup tomorrow. I'm really hoping that I might be able to put it out of the bag and overtake Morning Line tomorrow. In third is the Festival Flyers. I think you've pinched my name. In fourth at the moment is Hope More Than Expectation. And in fifth is Mr. Ed Speaks. I won't run through the other 41 entries, but it's still very close. So anyone could still win tomorrow. So looking forward to seeing who scoops the Totes £100 jackpot win for the Foxtrot Racing Cheltenham League. And thanks to everyone that supported that and we're getting involved in it. Hopefully a little bit fun for those people that are involved. And we'll follow the results with interest tomorrow, particularly me, to see how we get on. Now, we did have two runners that I mentioned earlier at the festival. And what I thought I'd do is just start off today just with a little bit of a flavour, perhaps, of what it was like to have a runner there. So I've picked one of the horses, which is Witness Protection, and just put together a very little and quick video, just as a little bit of an insight for those people that weren't in a syndicate yesterday, what it was all about.
They're off. Away this time for the Coral Cup, with among those in a prominent position Witness Protection, the pale jacket with the red cap as they take the opening flight. Heaven Help Us in an orange jacket is also handy. They've cleared the first safely. Towards the back of the field, Shantang in the black silks and Kashari in the pink, and Our Power is also in rear as they go to the second, and Heaven Help Us is getting loose on the lead and cleared it about 3 lengths ahead. Towards the fifth, and it's still Heaven Help Us who leads the Coral Cup field. Lands a length and a half ahead of Witness Protection. They'd be about 15 lengths from top to tail as they draw on towards flight. Dominantly white jacket with a red cap, and then Palmer's Hill with a quartered cap who's tracking Gichero de Juillet to the top of the hill from Blue Sari and Birchdale on the inner. Heaven Help Us still in front there, but only narrowly. Witness Protection comes alongside. Shake 'em Up Harry and Janica are disputing third. T-Clipper in the noseband, wider sneaky getaway, and then Botox Hat. Towards the inside, Monte Cristo from Gichero de Juillet. Widest of all, Burbank being shaken along. Craig Niche in a red jacket still poised in midfield with Guard Your Dreams on his inner as they begin to run on down the hill. Our Power is the one detached last of all. So making the run towards 3 out in the Coral Cup. Heaven Help Us, orange jacket. Witness Protection, the red cap is right there. They've got a lead of 2 or 3 lengths on the pursuers, who are clustering in behind Janica, Shake 'em Up, Harry, T-Clipper, the noseband. Blue Sari, the hoops with E-Star, and the cap is coming there. Burbank on the outer. Guard Your Dreams is ridden along, so too Monte Cristo. Craig Niche, red jacket, has to angle for a position. Heaven Help Us in front as they approach the second last spring hill. Landed 3 lengths ahead, shakes off Witness Protection. Blue Sari though moving up, giving chase. Then Monte Cristo, Janica, T-Clipper, the noseband. Burbank wide from Gichero de Juillet, but around the final bend, Heaven Help Us leads by 4 or 5 lengths. Chased hard by Blue Sari. Craig Niche ran off a second ahead of T-Clipper. On. Then Guard Your Dreams, Palmer's Hill, Don Levant and Birchdale.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that little video of our day out at Cheltenham yesterday. And I know we couldn't be there as owners, but we did our very best to hopefully sort of bring Cheltenham into everyone's homes. And hopefully everyone enjoyed just having a little look back at Witness Protection's day out at Cheltenham. And how well did he run? Absolutely fantastic. So great to see him. I suspect he probably didn't quite stay. We stepped him up in distance, really, because we thought it was about the only race he'd get into. And we stepped him up in trip, and probably we found that trip just a little bit far for him. But he's run a fantastic race, a novice in his first ever handicap. He's never run in a field that size or as competitive as that before. So a tremendous run. And plans for Witness Protection, we will step him back in trips. So he'll go over 2 miles next time, either probably at the April Cheltenham meeting or potentially the Scottish Champion Hurdle, which actually is a handicap. So both of those look good options for him back over 2 miles. And gosh, doesn't he travel well? You know, he's a lovely chasing prospect for next year. So well done, and congratulations to all his syndicate members. And hopefully you enjoyed the offering that we're able to produce from Cheltenham. Now, for me, one of the highlights of the Cheltenham Festival so far has been Tiger Roll, and I really enjoyed seeing him. But I must say, you know, obviously we had Hogan's Height in the same race, who finished 6th, best of the British horses in there. And he never really looked like challenging the leaders, but it was a hugely competitive race. Obviously, we're in these races to try and win, and that's our aim and our objective. But I think sometimes we have to accept that sometimes horses like Tiger Roll we just struggle to get on terms with. But it was great to be involved in what I think has been the best and most impressive performance of the festival, and great to have a runner in such a fantastic race. He got round safely. He's fine today. And now all roads lead to the Grand National, which was the main aim for the season for Hogan's Height. He'll definitely come on for that race. And I think he will run better if he goes back to Cheltenham and does the cross-country next season. You look back on horses that have won that cross-country, and almost all the time they've got experience over those fences. So something maybe to keep up our sleeve for next season, to go back and run over the cross-country with Hogan's Height. But very much looking forward to the 10th of April with him, and going to Aintree and the Grand National. So just before we move on, I don't know if anyone from any of those syndicates, Witness Protection or Hogan's Height, would like to get involved and make any comments, suggestions or complaints about their day at Cheltenham yesterday. But it'd be great to hear from anyone if they'd like to get involved. Anyone from those two syndicates? Very quiet.
Oh, go on then.
Thank you, Deborah.
I'm waiting for someone else to say something. All I would say is I have a really big complaint, and that is, why weren't we there with 2 horses running on the same day? Would have been a great day out. Me, Les and Joe were all texting each other like mad. Half my team skived off to watch Witness and lost their money on him. At work. Sorry, I shouldn't laugh. But anyway, but no, it was really good to have them. And actually I thought Hogan was great, Dan. He just jumps like a stag, doesn't he, really? He just didn't, you don't know when his shoes came off. You haven't said he lost 2 shoes, have you? I don't think. So that probably impacted him. But no, I thought it was a great day. Go on then, Phil, the floor's yours.
Yeah, I think the beauty down for Hogan is he's never really gone more than 2.5 miles. So the beauty is now we know he can run 3 or almost 4 miles. So that was a big worry for me. I could quite easily see him being pulled up in that, whatever. But now he's gone round, he's finished, he's completed the course, jumped all the fences. It really means now that in the National, he should, hopefully, if he jumps well, get round, which would be a fantastic achievement, really. And who knows?
No, I completely agree, Phil, because I think before the race we were thinking, 3 miles 6, that's a long way, and particularly with the Grand National in the back of our mind. But in fact, he seemed to get better and better almost as the race went on. He just took a little bit of time to warm up, and probably not helped by the fact that he ended up getting down to the start very late, because Gavin Sheehan was involved in the stewards' inquiry before, which, it's not a moan, but I don't think it helped his chances really, and certainly didn't get a good spot to line up with. But look, he did stay, and I think that makes Aintree even more exciting and something really to look forward to. Simon, you've got something to say.
Yeah, thank you for yesterday. I think it's like a dream come true for a lot of people. I was absolutely buzzed up with Witness, and then just for that split second where they pan to the side on and they're going down the hill, and there was a gap opening up, I dared to sort of dream. And like he was at Stratford, he cleared off, and it just didn't quite, for whatever reason, didn't happen. Just a quickie. Does that mean he just doesn't get a trip above that, or do you think it was just? There's a number of possible excuses for that yesterday, isn't there? Because even in your emails before, it wasn't 100% that he was going to be fit enough, and then it would take Martins had to get him ready, etc. So, like I said, I'm lucky enough to have a little share in another horse of theirs called Debden Bank, and we've got a little WhatsApp group. And I said, and I just happened to drop a message on there to say he must have pulled the jockey's arms out when he was schooled last week before. So, with Martin the way he's very meticulous, obviously they wouldn't have run if they didn't think he got a bit of a squeak in there. So, yeah, I'd be disappointed if he wasn't tried over the sort of same distance again. But I do think his optimum's probably 2-2-2-3 on what I've seen so far.
Yeah, no, it's a very good point, Simon. And I think the point you raised, firstly, is Martin's Yard, as many yards have had when the weather got a bit warmer, has had a little bit of a bug, which has affected both him and Solstice Star. And he went into that Cheltenham race having only done one piece of work in the last month, which is absolutely phenomenal, really. And no doubt he wasn't absolutely 100%, but in terms of his fitness, but he was certainly deemed fit enough to run. I think he showed that was the case on the day. But so that's perhaps a contributing factor. I think, does he stay? Well, I think the jury's probably still out on that. But I think if we're going to run him again, we definitely step back, because not necessarily saying he doesn't stay, but he travels so well. You really think he's going to be so well suited by traveling quickly on the right sort of ground. And I'd love to go back to Cheltenham with that hill, over 2 miles, 2 miles 2, that sort of distance. I think it's going to be very, very difficult to peg back. Whereas I just felt we're almost a little bit of a sitting duck over 2 miles 6. Now, the only time he's been beaten this season has been over that distance, and that perhaps tells us a little bit. So, look, we're not ruling out him going further, certainly not in time. But I think Martin's view is let's play to his strengths. And his strengths are how fast he can jump and how quick he is, so let's run him over a shorter distance so he really can take advantage of that. But let's see how he goes next time. And these novices, we're learning about them all the time, and of course they're changing and strengthening up, and who knows where we may end up with him.
I also think the winner was impressive to win by 9 lengths as well, because he went off the front and won by 9. So I don't think the winner can be underestimated either. I think that was pretty smart.
No, absolutely. I think the winner's done it very, very well, hasn't he? No, thanks very much, Phil. Very quickly, because we've got Charlie here. Yeah. You've just got something to add in.
When do the next scratchings happen for the Grand National, and how many need to come out for us to get in?
The answer to that is I can't remember the date actually, so I'm not sure how many need to come out. I don't know. It'll happen. Don't worry. He's guaranteed cannot not get into this race.
I think it's Monday. I think it's Monday.
It's coming up very soon, Monday apparently. So I can't remember. It's not something that you should lose any sleep about, Phil. If he doesn't get into that race, it'll be unbelievable. It's so don't worry about him getting in. I'll check the dates and I'll send you a message later on once I've just confirmed when that next.
Cheers, Dan. Thanks for a great week.
Brilliant. Well, we've been talking about Grand Nationals and 2 horses that may well sneak into a future Grand National. Who knows? 2 novices at the moment are Mr. Muldoon and Ballybody. And I thought it was worth just having a little bit of a catch up with them just before we speak to Charlie, because Mr. Muldoon is having a novice chase season at the moment, and Ballybody is going novice hurdling, but he looks a staying chaser in the making, and a very, very exciting one as well. So what I thought we'd do is just have a very quick look back on Mr. Muldoon's race and see if we can remind ourselves about him, and then we'll catch up with Charlie after this video.
Does he train Mr. Muldoon?
No, he's a jockey. That's for Richard Newland.
Oh, is that who's on tonight?
I didn't like.
Instant replay joined by the Paddy Pie. Racius Felix about 4 lengths further back. Mr. Muldoon is over the first, down the far side, leads by just over a length. The Paddy Pie second, instant replay third. And Racius Felix just a few lengths away, and just getting the impression now, just struggling to keep up with the other three. Mr. Muldoon over that fence. Not such a good jump there from Instant Replay in third. So they've got one more fence to jump down the back. It's Mr. Muldoon and Charlie Hammond leading Ryan Manny aboard the Paddy Pie. Instant Replay pushed along in the hands of Brian Hughes, and Henry Brook working on Racius Felix. So going to the final fence on the far side of the track, 4 from the finish. Mr. Muldoon chased by the Paddy Pie. They're split by a good couple of lengths there from Instant Replay, and Racius Felix is really struggling. So going now towards the top of the hill, and it's Mr. Muldoon at the top end of the race course. Leads by 2 lengths to the Paddy Pie. 3 out. Mr. Muldoon over it. The Paddy Pie landing a few lengths adrift, but well clear of the other two, Instant Replay and Racius Felix, who in fact is now pulling up. Racius Felix pulls up at the third last. So 2 to jump, and this is an open ditch. Mr. Muldoon really set alight there going towards the ditch. Now Mr. Muldoon coming to it, over it, and is about 5 or 6 lengths clear of the Paddy Pie. Instant Replay has been pulled up before the ditch, so only 2 going. Mr. Muldoon having an easy time of things now in front, and the Paddy Pie making very little impression at the moment with a furlong and a half to go. 1 more fence to jump. Mr. Muldoon is cruising along towards the final fence. Mr. Muldoon from the Paddy Pie at the last. It's all about this last jump, and there are no issues there. Mr. Muldoon is on the flat. It's another Sedgefield success from Mr. Muldoon, trained by Dr. Richard Newland and partnered by Charlie Hammond. Mr. Muldoon is the easy winner, and the Paddy Pie is second.
Well, I don't think he's going to ride many easy winners, and I'm absolutely delighted that Charlie, straight from Cheltenham Racecourse, has very kindly joined us this evening. Charlie, how are you?
I'm very good, thank you. It's nice to watch a few races like that as well, isn't it?
First of all, obviously you rode Bobet in the last race at Cheltenham. All okay with him, and you've obviously come straight from the race course this evening.
Yeah, all's okay with Bobet. Massive step up in grade. Although he's won his races this season, massive step up in grade there. Ground's probably a bit too quick for him, and you know, he's a 10-year-old off a career high mark going into the Cheltenham Festival. It was never going to be easy. So I wasn't overly hard on him, and we'll save him for another day, and maybe next season he might have a holiday now. We'll have to see.
Well, he's had a fantastic season for you, and I know you played a crucial part in his success. But also with Mr. Muldoon, you had a double with him at Sedgefield, and I mean, you made that look incredibly easy, Charlie. Was it as easy as it looked?
I tell you, it was. You know, the race went perfectly to plan, really. We set off and Richard was happy for us to make it or to sit very handy, but we wanted to make sure we didn't go slow because we thought that'd be detrimental to us. We've set off, we've jumped the first upsides, and then Henry Brooks come past us and gone a nice gallop for the first circuit, which I thought was ideal. He got in a lovely rhythm jumping. He jumped a little bit right, but that's always been a bit him more than anything else. You know, that's not a problem. He just sorts himself out when he's wrong, and he does it. You know, you don't mind it when they're sorting themselves out. It's when they're doing it all the time, but he only does it when he's on a bad stride, and he does it so he meets on a nice stride. He got in a lovely rhythm, and with a circuit to go, Henry's horse came back underneath him a bit, and I didn't want us to slow the pace up. I wanted to make it a nice test, and all he's done then is wing fences all the way down the back. He's got in a lovely rhythm, and we've just galloped them all into the ground. You could argue the race fell apart, but that takes nothing away from Muldoon. You know, he has jumped for fun, and he's travelled so well throughout the race. I said to Richard, I actually thought that he felt a better horse the second time at Sedgefield than he did the first time at Sedgefield with me. You know, he was more on it. You see at the start, he was jig jogging left and right, like he was ready for that day, and he wanted to do it, which was nice to have it from him. And he really did jump for fun. You see him at the last there; he was very measured, and everything was very easy for him. Really happy.
Well, I said you made it look easy, but actually, you know, I know tactically you got the race absolutely spot on, because there's a real danger with that sort of field. There'd be no pace and it probably wouldn't be run. So you took it out right at the right time. And how much, Charlie, do you sort of think about and pre-plan how you want the race to go, and how much sort of pre-planning is involved when you go to ride a horse?
In a race like that, you need to. It's tricky. You almost need to plan more in a race like that than you do for a big field race, because obviously you've got 4 runners. There might be no one that wants to go on. We might not do a lot in front and stuff like that. But with a horse like Muldoon, it's fairly simple because you can ride him anyway. He's not keen. He doesn't do too much. So, I wasn't looking for cover anywhere because I might be too keen or anything like that. I was happy to be wherever I was because I knew that he'd travel away enough without doing too much, and he gets in a lovely rhythm jumping. That was the main thing, was to, have another good experience jumping and just to get him in a nice rhythm. And it was fairly simple with that. And then more with Henry's horse coming back was more having to make my mind up in the race as to what we wanted to do, because we knew we didn't really want the speed of the race to slow down much, because obviously that would have given anything else a chance to get in the race. We know he's won over further. He's won a point to point. Look, you could argue what trip's his ideal trip because he's won over every trip nearly, but we knew he'd stay more, and going slow would probably have been detrimental to us. So it was more key to just keep him going, and that was a decision to make mid-race, but it was a fairly simple one, especially with how he'd been jumping. If he jumped a bit slow and steady early on in the race, maybe I'd have waited a bit further to down the back to let him get into a rhythm and just to make sure I could pop away another couple. But with how he'd been jumping, I knew fairly straight away that I wanted to, try and test everyone else because I could get in a nice rhythm, and I needed to put everyone else under pressure, like we ended up doing with Henry and I think Brian Hughes' horse. They both pulled up.
Yeah. Charlie, that race was one of your last wins with a £3 claim before you lost the claim, and you must have been delighted with that. Can you just explain a little bit how it works? How does the claiming system work? How do you lose your claim? What happens then? Can you just give us a brief sort of insight and an overview as to the system?
So you start off with a £10 claim. That's for someone who's never ridden a winner. You lose that after 5 winners, which I actually lost on a Foxtrot horse. I bet you couldn't guess which one that was.
Of course I know. Of course I do. Just let everyone else know.
It was round Stratford. You also had another winner that day, I believe. It was Blagapar.
Ah, that's right. Now that was in July, and I was in Sweden that day, so I wasn't there, which is hence I've forgotten. But you're absolutely right. Yeah, I watched that from a park in Gothenburg. Believe it or not. Yeah, I do remember that.
And then so after you've ridden 5 winners, you lose your £10 claim, and then you've got until 20 winners with a £7 claim. So that's fairly straightforward, And then when you've ridden 40, you go down to a £3. So you have 5 after you've ridden 20. And then after you've ridden 40, you go down to a £3 claim. And then once you've ridden 75 winners in total, that takes you down to, well, no claim professional, but you can still ride in boys races for 6 months or until you renew your license. So I don't renew my license until November, so I've got 6 months grace of being able to ride in conditional jockeys races, which is nice because it gives you a chance to find your feet without a claim, potentially make some more contacts, but also just get going a bit and keep everyone happy.
So just so those of you those sort of people watching that aren't so familiar with your choice, obviously you're sort of attached to Richard Newland's yard. Just to explain, obviously, what do you do at Richard's yard? Do you just ride the races, or are you involved in more than that?
So I've been at Richard's for 7 years, I think now, which is a long old time. Not a lot of conditionals would stay at one yard for that long. They tend to float around for different trainers, but Richard's been very good to me. It's all worked out. So when I first started, all I did was ride out. We started at 8:30 and we were done by 9:30, 10 o'clock. No, we started at 8 and we were done by 9:30, 10 o'clock. But that was only when he had 12 horses in. So obviously the whole yard has expanded since then. He's built a new yard and everything. Nowadays, I feed in the morning with Wayne, the head lad. We do the lot list, me, him and Rod, and just make sure everyone's happy with what they're on, what horses are working, what horses we're going to school each week, sort of thing. If there's anything that I think schooling that Rod hasn't put down to be schooled, just so we've got the final preparations and everything's right. And hopefully then you don't see anything go to the races and jump like it's never seen a hurdle or a fence before, because that's always the danger. And then I'll ride out 4 lots most mornings, and then that's it, not done for the day, because if I'm not racing, I'll go somewhere else after, but I'll either go racing after 4 lots or we'll do something else.
I suppose Richard's very clever. He puts the jockey deciding which horses can school to make sure that they can jump very well, and make sure that you're making sure they jump well.
Well, exactly. It's a lot of trust and belief in the horse and jockey. Getting to know a horse makes a big difference, because some horses obviously have loads of scope and can go long all the time, and some horses are just better off letting them find their feet early on in a race, and then you can ask them. It's all about confidence, and I do think that a lot of it is the more you know a horse, the better you get on with them, and the more chance you've got to win in a race on them, because they've got habits. They're like us. They've got habits, and you know what they like, and they know what you like. Then,
very interesting. Well, Charlie Mr. Muldoon wasn't your only winner for Foxtrot, and let's give you a little break and just remind ourselves a little bit about your other winner, and let's just have a little look at that. Now, we've got to remember this is a 3 mile 2 furlong or 3 mile 1 and a bit race, so it's a long race, so we won't show it all, but when you see some tired horses in this clip, you've got to accept they've already probably traveled 2.5 miles, so we'll pick it up there and see how we get on.
As they make their way now towards the far side for the final time. 1 flight of hurdles to jump on this part of the track and then 2 more. And this Fiddler's Tracker is pounding it on out in front, leads by about 4 or 5 lengths to Glentrule in second. Then in third, Barley Body. Round the outside, Jetaway Joey. Aidan Coleman just brings that horse a little bit wider. And then Well Briefed as they make the turn down the far side. Still going is Global Frontier, but getting further and further behind. So it's Fiddler's Tracker that leads down towards the next flight of hurdles, third from the finish. And just having a little look at this as well. I had a look at a previous flight as well, Fiddler's Tracker. Pops over that one okay. Glentrule now just getting a little bit tired in second, just being driven along. Round the outside, Jetaway Joey's getting closer, but this one's had to work to get into a position as well. Barley Body is still there. And then we have Well Briefed, who's now getting a little bit detached, and further detached is Global Frontier. So they're thinning out here as they make their way past the 2 mile start. There are 2 more flights of hurdles left to jump. And now moving well on the outside is Barley Body and draws alongside Fiddler's Tracker. Fiddler's Tracker, Barley Body, then Glentrule up the inside. Getting into the race steadily is Jetaway Joey. So as they make their way down towards the second last flight of hurdles, they've gone a good gallop here, and it's beginning to sort 1 or 2 out as they make their way over the penultimate flight. Barley Body popped over it quite well. Now goes on to lead and is still travelling strongly. To in second position, a driven along Fiddler's Tracker, followed then in third by on the outside the pink colours of Jetaway Joey, and then after that the long time leader Fiddler's Tracker. They're making their way down towards the turn into the home straight. Glentrule battling hard on the inside of Barley Body. Whip now drawn for Jetaway Joey. They're making the turn for home. They're inside the final quarter of a mile, and it's Barley Body out in front by 1.5 lengths or so to Glentrule. Then after that, Jetaway Joey, who flattered to deceive. They're making the swing for home now. There's 1 more flight of hurdles left to go. They're well strung out, but it's Barley Body who leads at the moment under strong driving. Glentrule is trying to battle back for Millie Wanacott. They're well clear of the rest. Down towards the final flight they go. Barley Body got over in a fashion. Glentrule wasn't particularly tidy either, and it's Barley Body now by a couple of lengths to Glentrule, who's battling very hard, but inside the final half furlong they go, and Barley Body has always travelled well and is going to take this out nicely in the end by 2.5 to 3 lengths to Glentrule, who's finished in second spot. Very tired in third, Jetaway Joey, and then coming up the line now to be fourth will be Fiddler's Tracker, and it looks like
well done, Charlie. Another super winner. Now, was that your first winner as a professional?
it was, yeah, that was my first win of that acclaim, so nice way to do it.
Brilliant. Well, that was very impressive. So tell us a little bit about him. Obviously, we'd run him over shorter distances, but he seemed to just love that long sort of test of stamina.
Yeah, so obviously I rode him the first day at Fontwell, and he's not a quick horse at home, but the ground was obviously very wet that day, and we thought we might just get away with it a bit with him. It was a big fact-finding mission more than anything else, and he was a bit disappointing, but we learnt a lot about him. He still had a good blow, he was fast enough. And then at Warwick, he ran at Warwick, and he ran very well. From a long way out, I thought just down the back, we were trying to look after him, just get him to run a nice race and finish off well. And he moved into it lovely up the straight, and all he did was battle up to line, and he still had a blow that day as well. He's a big, stuffy horse. He's a real strong unit. He's a lovely horse to look at. But problem is with those sort of horses, they take a lot more training than the horses like Muldoon almost, who's more athletic. That's a bit harsh on Barley Body, but he's a bit narrow and he doesn't hold on to everything as much as Barley Body would. So it just took him a couple of runs to get 100% really. And he finished off really well at Warwick that day. So I said to Richard, I think he'd actually won over a shorter trip, to be fair, back over something like 2.5 miles. But I said to Richard, if there's a 3 mile race, this is what we should be going for with him, because he'll win one of these. And round Hereford, he travelled really well the whole way throughout the race. He travelled really strongly. You know, he wasn't too keen, but he was in my hands, just doing it nicely, got a nice rhythm jumping. He missed a couple. We ended up missing the last, but that was my fault, really. I'd take the blame for that, because he travelled that strongly going up the hill. I was a bit worried about letting what was in front, the horse that was in front, go too much on that sort of ground, because you don't always get back to them. And he travelled so strongly up the hill. All of a sudden, I got there, I winged 2 out, and I landed in front. And as soon as I've got in front, he's pricked his ears, because he's not really been there much, and he didn't really know what to do with himself. And especially on that sort of ground, it's hard work for a horse then, because, you know, they almost think they've won the race, and you've got to get after them, because if you sit up on them for too long again, then once they've stopped a little bit in front, all of a sudden you lose all the momentum, and we didn't want to do that. So I've got after him a bit, and he's run all the way to line. He's got in tight to last, and he just kicked out the ground a little bit, but I don't mind that. He's got in tight. He's thought about it rather than just letting fly and clipping the top of it and falling. He's been sensible enough, but he's galloped all the way to the line. I've had to give him a flick or two, but that's just because of how green he was more than anything else. There's loads of positives to take from him, and actually he came out with a mark of 118, I believe, which I think is quite not lenient, but I think it's a very interesting mark for him, because he's very unexposed over a trip like that on the heavy grounds, which is going to be ideal for him. And, you know, he's hit the line running. If I'd had company the whole way up the straight, I didn't know the favourite had fallen. So I got to the front on him like I did, because I just wanted to put the race to bed, because we know what he's like. We knew that he'd stay, and I didn't want to leave it to any chances, but it was possibly a bit detrimental to us. But he's so genuine, really, that when I did get after him, all he's done is gallop, and he's done it very nicely. And I do like 118 for him, you know, over a fence or even just over hurdles, over a trip on some heavy ground. I think it would be interesting to see him in a handicap.
Well, as you say, the ground's going to be very dependent for him, and whether or not we can squeeze in an extra race somewhere before the end of the season, maybe by heading somewhere north and finding a bit of soft ground somewhere, and then give him a break, and then perhaps go chasing, you know, but trying to, you know, now we've sort of got that mark. I'm delighted, because, you know, you think of going chasing next year off that mark, and, you know, that's very, very exciting. And he certainly looks an exciting prospect, I think, for next year.
Yeah, he's got a lovely way about going about things as well. He travels nicely, but he's not too keen, and he does jump really well. And he's a big, strong horse who he'll just grind everyone into the ground over a fence and over a trip. And I think chasing next season is, you know, you could almost give him another season hurdling if you wanted to, but I think chasing is where you're going to get the best out of him. So do you need to wait another season? I don't think you do. I'd go chasing with him just to see it, because you've got more extended trips over fences as well, don't forget, which is, you know, if you'd stay herding, you don't get many races over extended trips, and over fences, any of those extended trip races could be very interesting for him, because he does just have the right way about going about things, and he's obviously got the ability to. And what's really nice is the improvement he's shown each run as well.
So Hogan's Height wins the Grand National in April, and Ballybody goes to defend the Foxtrot Crown in 2022. It's all coming together, the grand plan. I can see it now.
Yeah.
So, Charlie, if you've got time, can we just grab a couple of questions from some Foxtrot members? Is that okay?
Of course you can. Yeah, of course you can.
That's brilliant, and you know, really great for you to join us. So I've got one here from Les that just wants to ask about Mr. Muldoon. Just points out that he's still sort of looking around a little bit in his races. And do you think that's of concern, or do you think it's actually quite interesting that it suggests that he might have a bit of improvement still left in him?
That wouldn't concern me with how he finished his race at Sedgefield. You know, if he got to the front and he was tying himself up in front and stopping in front, I'd be a bit worried. But he's galloped, he's hit the line running. He's winged the last, like jumped it beautifully. I think if I had company, the ears wouldn't have been pricked, and he is a trier. That wouldn't concern me anyway.
Okay, are there any other questions one would like to? I've got one here, Charlie. Obviously, now you've turned professional. What are your sort of hopes for the future? Where would you like to go from here?
Obviously, at the minute, things are going really well for me. I've had 22 winners this season. My best is 25, which was a couple of seasons ago. So the first season you've ridden out your claim tends to be the hardest season to maintain how you've been going. So if I could ride a similar amount of winners next season, I'd be delighted. Richard's been very good to me, as of the owners like Foxtrot and everyone. They've all been this season. Whenever Sammy's not been available, I've been second port of call really, which is nice, and hopefully it can maintain like that, and in the long run we'll still be there with everyone, and we'll be getting a few nice winners.
Definitely. Well, look, I think we've got time for one more question. So Phil, let's get a question from you.
Yeah, hi there. Have you ridden any of the red cap horses yet in training?
I have, and I saw one school this morning with Sam as well.
Okay.
Actually, I saw two school this morning. I saw I think Blue Ribbon's a red cap horse, isn't he?
Yeah.
I think I saw him school this morning. It might have been Rebel Leader, actually. I'm not sure. I gave him a lead. And he scored really well. Sammy was really taken by him. And I also saw Lord Snap's school. And he was very impressive. He's a real nice big horse. He did everything properly, and he went up over the fences as well. I quite like him. He's a very athletic sort. He's a nice big stamp of a horse. There's some lovely horses in there as well. Blue Ribbon, I haven't had too much to do with, but he is a gorgeous horse to look at. And if you saw him at sales, he'd be the pick of the bunch, I think, for the one to buy. He is a really nice horse to look at, and hopefully he can produce how he looks anywhere on the race course, and will be flying if that's the case. And then who else have we got in it? We've got Lord Snaps, Blue Ribbon. Have we got Astromachia?
Yeah.
Astromachia, I've done a lot of schooling with in the menage so far. To start with, he was a bit lazy, just a bit behind the bridle, but the last week he has really taken to it. We've nearly got him over a hurdle, not quite, but he's jumping some quite big show jumps, doing a double really nicely as well. He's making a real effort for it, and actually he's got quite forward going into them now. He's improved loads. I said to Rod this morning, the difference in him in a week is phenomenal. And he's actually shown a real good attitude for it. So that's really nice. I'm a big fan of last week. I thought it could be hard work for him, but how he is this week, it's phenomenal, the difference. And it's amazing what a bit of confidence for a horse like that can do. You know, when they understand what you want them to do, it might take a day or two, but when they do understand, the difference is unbelievable. And he's shown a real good attitude for it the last couple of days, and I'm quite impressed with him. And obviously he was quite a good flat horse as well, wasn't he? So if we can translate that, then you'd be really looking forward to him. Who else have we got? Astromachia, Lord Snaps, Blue Ribbon, Rebel Leader. Phoenix Dawn. Phoenix Dawn. Phoenix Dawn's obviously done a bit more than all the others, for us anyway. But you'd like to hope there was a bit of improvement in him, because he had 2 quick runs for Richard last year after buying him out of a cellar around Huntingdon, didn't he? And you could argue that he probably wasn't really fit enough, because he was trained by a small trainer who wouldn't train a lot of winners, and we ran him very quickly, and he definitely wasn't used to our routine. And you'd like to hope that with being in training for a full pre-training and a full training routine or regime as we would do with them, that you get a bit more improvement from him as well. And he ran very well for Richard in his 2 other runs as well, that he had for us. So I think there'd be improvement in him. He's a nice little horse. He's got a great attitude for it all. He knows how to win a race as well, which is key. You know, they're a good bunch of horses actually. There's a big variety of horses in there, which is quite nice. You know, you got the horses like Lord Snaps, who's going to be a chaser, and then you got the horses like Astromachia, who will be a lovely novice hurdler, and then your old handicappers like Phoenix Dawn. I quite like it, and the unexposed horses like Blue Ribbon, because obviously he's only had a couple of runs over hurdles, hasn't he? He's not done lots. So nice bunch of horses. It's nice to have such a variety as well, because they're not all going to be going for the same races.
Thanks.
Brilliant. Well, thanks so much, Charlie. Simon, I can see you've got your hand up. This will be the last question we've got. So, Simon, what's your question?
Sorry, I just wonder what the plans were now for Muldoon for the rest of the season, because obviously he had a bit of a hiccup this year. So I just wonder what the plan was for the rest of the season, please.
I don't know that. You'll have to ask the syndicate manager. He would know a lot more about that than me. It'll be quite exciting. I don't know what Trip Richard's plan is, but when I spoke to him, I think we were thinking around the 2.4, 2.6 area, but Dan will know more than me.
Okay.
Well, I can tell you, I mean, the answer to your question, Simon, is we're not actually sure, because we wanted to see how he come out of the race, because we know once or twice he's come out a little bit stiff, and we wanted to not make too many plans before we knew he was 100%. Obviously, he's gone up into the ratings now, and one option might be something like a novice chase, even at Aintree. But let's, as Charlie says, we're probably not going to run him over 3 miles this season. We'll keep him sort of 2.5, but probably look to try and end the season with one more run, maybe at a prestigious meeting such as Aintree, and go and have hopefully owners will be allowed, and go and have a fun day out somewhere in a big race just to finish off this season.
Cheers. Thanks.
Brilliant. Well, Charlie, we had Richard Newland as our guest last week, and I can tell you he was singing your praises and saying what a instrumental and vital part of the team you were, particularly as you're the one that gets up the earliest, he mentioned. So he was full of praise for you and said how important you are, and I can completely understand why, because I think for, dare I say, a young jockey, you come across extremely well, very knowledgeable, and I know how much time and effort you put into planning all your rides, and it'll come as no surprise to anyone why we like to use you as much as we do. So thank you very much, not just for the fantastic rides that you give our horses, but also for all the work you do back at the yard in schooling and preparing them, because we know what a vital role that you have, whether or not you're riding them on race day or not. So Charlie Hammond, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much, everyone. Cheers, Dan.
Well, that was Charlie, and what a super guy he is, and really good of him to join, especially during Cheltenham week, straight from riding in the last race at Cheltenham back home to get on our Zoom. So thanks very much indeed to Charlie for joining us. So what I thought we'd do just before we are joined by Mark, who's going to speak to us briefly just about Bloodstock and buying and selling horses. I thought we'd just have a little look to this weekend and what's going on. So we've got 3 horses entered. We've got 2 have been declared for Saturday. Now, Sunday, we've got Anything for Love entered at Chepstow. I think it's looking unlikely that she's going to be declared tomorrow. It's been drying all week, and I think it's going to be a bit too quick for her. We'll make a decision tomorrow after Jamie Snowden's run the clerk of the course, just to get an update. We were hoping Chepstow in Wales would be nice and wet, but it has been drying there this week, and I think it's probably just not going to be suitable, and we'd rather wait, bide our time. And if we can't find another race on suitable ground, then so be it, but it'd be lovely if we could. And knowing the British weather, there's going to be some rain over the next couple of weeks or 3 weeks, so hopefully we can find somewhere for Anything for Love, but I think it's looking unlikely to be Chepstow on Sunday. Now, we've got 2 runners on Saturday, and one of them is going to win. So Solstice Star runs at Uttoxeter. He's probably not going to win. He has come out of Martin's Yard, as mentioned before. They've had a bit of a bug. I think he probably is going to need the run. He's not quite spot on, but we'll give him a run round. That'll get him right, drop a couple of pounds in the handicap, and then we should have a lot of fun with him this spring off a very good mark indeed. So Solstice Star to go to Uttoxeter in the race that he won last year. He's fit and well, probably though will just benefit from the run. But one to look out for certainly next time out. And our winner on Saturday, as I'm sure people will be aware, I'm absolutely delighted to say that Maracuja is going to win the £25,000 feature race at Kempton Park, the Silver Bowl. So congratulations to all of his syndicate members in advance of his tremendous win. Now, those of you that don't know what I'm talking about, I ought to explain. Maracuja is the only horse running in the Silver Bowl at Kempton on Sunday. Now, walkovers, as they're known with one horse, are extremely rare. And the reason for that is now the BHA changed the rules so that if any race has a shortage of runners, it is reopened. So anyone else can then go in and say, oh God, there's only one runner. Well, I'll definitely declare and at least I'll finish second. So walkovers now are very rare. But this race has a very special rule in it. And the rule is only horses that have been balloted out of the Cheltenham Festival, a chase at the Cheltenham Festival, are allowed to be declared. So the idea is the race was a bit of a sort of compensation race for those people that had aimed at the Cheltenham Festival, being balloted out, and at least it would give them a run while the horse was fresh and fit and ready to go. And over a number of years, it's been a very successful and very prestigious race to win. But because numbers at the Cheltenham Festival this year have been reduced in terms of the number of declarations, only Maracuja has been balloted out of a chase at the Cheltenham Festival. Therefore, he is the only horse that was able to be declared and is able to enter the race. So he doesn't, thankfully, need to run round the 2 miles, because I'd be a nervous wreck if he had to jump 12 fences and get round. So thankfully, all he has to do is weigh in, or at least Bridget Andrews will have to weigh in before the race. He has to pass and be ridden past the judge's box. Then Bridget just has to weigh out. And as long as those three things happen, he will win the £25,000 Silver Bowl trophy on Saturday. Congratulations to everyone. Bridget was the lucky, I can imagine him, Harry and Bridget had a flick of the coin for who would get the ride. So congratulations on a fantastic win there for the syndicate. Very pleasing to get a bit of money in the pot. Probably the second year running he will have paid for himself. So that's great news. And I did notice that ITV have moved the race to 1 o'clock, so they're no longer going to show it. I don't know why. Right. So let's move on from that rather interesting tale. And I'm absolutely delighted to be joined this evening by our Bloodstock agent. Mark, are you with us?
I am, Dan, loud and clear.
Great. Well, thanks very much for agreeing to join us. It's really appreciated. Now, the reason we wanted to get you on this evening, Mark, is because you recommended, if that's the right term to use, not only Mr. Muldoon and Ballybody to us, but also some other horses that people will be interested in and are involved in, such as Ultimate Getaway and Mason Jar. So the question is, Mark, how do you do it?
I've got the easy job, Dan, believe me. Once I recommend them, that's the end of it. I don't have to get up at 6:30 in the morning to muck them out. I don't have to train them. I don't have to ride them. I don't have to plan where they go. And I don't have to pay for them, which is probably the most important thing as well. But no, it's a little bit of a labour of love. I've been involved in the industry now for best part of 25 years. Started off actually in racecourse management, believe it or not, but I did have a slightly equine background. But I just enjoy it. And the top and bottom of it actually matters to me. As I said to you the other night, I'm very, very lucky that I've got a string of horses, which although don't run in my colours, I still think that I own them. In the sense that I bought them, it's important to me, and I want them to win. And because, how could I put it? Because I look at it from that point of view, I'm not selling them just to make a living. I'm selling them because I want them to win. And I go through probably a bit more of a process to make sure they're the right horse for the right people going to the right yards, and hopefully we get results like we do. We've had in the last week or so with Muldoon and Ballybody. I've got to admit, after Fontwell with Ballybody, I was going back through my phone book a little bit because I genuinely thought, as I said to you last year, that long term, I thought he was the nicest horse I bought last year. And I was scratching my head a little bit after Fontwell. Yes, maybe the trip, but I was still a little bit disappointed with him. But hopefully now we're starting to see what we all thought when we bought him, and I generally do think he is going to be a proper horse going forward.
Mark, you and I have obviously struck up a relationship, and those, people often ask how we buy horses, and some of those are bought because I like them. Some of them are bought because trainers recommended them, or an agent, of which you are one of the agents that I use and trust. And one of the things I think we both have very much in common is we both seek value, and I know that that's very, very important to you.
It is. I would say I got, obviously, a lot of people know that maybe my background initially was I was racing manager for another syndicate, no longer a competitor. It went a long time ago, the Winning Line. And what we were trying to do, exactly what you were, we're trying to bring racehorse ownership at a high level to as many people as we possibly could, and giving them a genuine interest in it, that they felt they had a tangible share in the horse. But the realism of it is you've got to pitch it at the right money. Yes, we know at the top of the market, a lot of the very good horses are owned by people with very, very deep pockets. And they, what we would consider a hell of a lot of money, might be spare change to them. But we've got to be realistic about what we're buying. And we'll say we're trying to get, well, you use the word value. When we assess a horse, we look at it as to what it can do, and do we think at that money, if it can do that, do we think it's value? And hopefully well, so no matter how good we are, we're going to get one or two wrong. But at the moment, it looks as though we're getting one or two right as well. And horses like Muldoon, I can remember having the conversation with Dr. Newland, because he was actually the first horse that I obviously sold to Foxtrot, because he was the first horse that sold to Richard as well. And he needed a fair bit of persuading, which I can understand. You know, he was a horse with a relatively unfashionable pedigree, a British pointer as well. One of his wins came in a match. And I think it came down to the fact is that, again, we felt he was value, and he was at the right money on the right day. Thank God we bought him. I might not be here tonight having this conversation. Or if he turned out to be no good, I don't think I would have been. But no, it's about finding value. You've got to work hard. You've got to find those little gems. And it's a full-time job. With all due respect, owners, trainers don't need me to find them very, very good horses at expensive prices. They're easily accessible. We all know where they are. They might be in a sales catalogue. They might be the latest 4-year-old point-to-point winner in Ireland when that starts again. They don't need an agent. My job is to find horses that wouldn't necessarily be accessible to people, or they wouldn't necessarily have the time to go through all the form, to make the phone calls. A lot of the horses I buy, I tend to keep an eye on for a period of time. It might be a couple of months, couple of weeks. There was one horse today that, well, it was going to be the death of me. It was the Shunter. I tried to buy that for 18 months and I just could not get it over the line. And good luck to the chap who bought it. He must have a lot more patience than what I had. But that's what you have to do. You just got to keep batting away and hopefully you'll get the right ones.
Well, if anyone's got any questions for Mark, do put them into the chat box at the bottom, and I'll pass them on, or raise your hand, and we'll get you on, because I'm sure Mark will be very happy to hear from any Foxtrot members. But Mark, you mentioned there about sort of the current environment for buying horses, and just tell us a little bit about COVID and what implications that has had, particularly in terms of buying point-to-pointers.
It's had a huge effect in the sense that horses aren't readily accessible at the moment. I generally thought maybe 6 months ago that a lot of people would, for want of a better word, adopt a fire sale approach. They haven't. They've actually literally stuck to the guns. You know, the point-to-pointing came back, then it stopped again. But what they thought at the time was they'd maybe be able to get out of it. It was at a certain time that maybe they'd already bought their stores for last year, so it wasn't impacting them as much financially. I know sales companies have been very, very good with lines of credit. But the trouble is for them now is that there's another season of store sales coming up. All those horses that are now in training, they would have expected to sell, and it gives them their bank to reinvest and go again and maybe try and find the next star. The trouble is their yards are full of horses that in many cases they would have expected to sell 6, 12, even 18 months ago. And I think if they get the go ahead maybe in about 3 weeks to start Irish pointing again, there will be a bit more movement on the sales front, as in horses will go and win, horses will maybe finish second or third, horses will disappoint, but they'll all find the values again. The problem will be is if they take a view, and it's very much up in the air in Ireland because their sort of regulations and restrictions are different to ours. If they don't start going ahead in early April and they push it back even till end of April into May, and there's still no word it's going to happen, a lot of people are going to have to sell. They genuinely, they've earned no money for 12 months. And I do think that's when a lot more horses will come on the market. It will be the straw that breaks the camel's back. They can't, there's a lot of people in that game, whether at the top of the game or at the bottom, they can't afford to hang on to horses that they've had. Possibly they're buying as 3-year-olds. They had a very, very interrupted season last year, obviously having won this season. So those 3-year-olds, a lot of the time, are now 6-year-olds. If they're getting towards the end of a 6-year-old career into 7-year-olds, as point-to-pointers, they're virtually worthless. You can buy probably the best Irish 6-year-old pointer for less than what the average price of a store will be at the Derby sale, for example, and he will be the best 6-year-old. So they're going to have to make a decision. So it is very, very tough for people out there, and I really do sympathise, because ultimately they're all in the same business as what we are. But unless they can run the horses and showcase what their abilities are, a lot of these horses are virtually worthless. And at some point, people are going to have to cash them in, because the sales companies are going to be on their back to get paid, because the sales companies are, I say, very generous with their credit lines. But even the local feed man, the hay man, the staff still don't need to get paid every week. At some point, they're going to have to sell these horses. And I do think we will see a major shift in the market, either when pointing starts, as in they say that horses will become, trainers and owners will be able to put a more accurate value on them. But if pointing doesn't start, that's when they really will cash them in. They'll just say, I can't keep these horses for another 6 or 7 months, because unfortunately horses' ages don't stand still. And they can say till they're blue in the face, oh, what a lovely horse it is, but it might not have done anything for 12 months. And, it's not going to make them any more valuable. So I do think the sort of next 4 or 5 weeks, we're going to see a huge change in the Irish pointing market anyway. Horses become more readily accessible.
Well, I can imagine you're thinking, I better get my checkbook out then, if that's the case.
It is one of those things, Dan. Obviously, they're a major source of where I get my horses from. So you build up relationships with people. And I'll give you an example. Pierce Power, who trained Ballybody, lovely man, one of the nicest men in Irish racing, very genuine. And, he's running a business, and when you speak to him, you can tell in his voice, he's incredibly frustrated and worrying for them. In good faith, they bought horses. It's their business, it's their commodity. And he just wants a chance, win, lose or draw, to see what he can make of them. At the moment, his hands are tied. And I just hope for everybody, at least, if they get back on the course, it appeases owners. Again, it's not dissimilar from the situation we're all going through at the moment. It's incredibly difficult for owners to sit back, and yes, it's enjoyable if they can't be there for personal reasons, if the horses goes and wins on the TV, but they'd much rather be there in person. Thankfully, we're getting to that stage in a couple of weeks' time where at least owners can get back on track. But some people might say you're trying to take advantage of the situation. Completely opposite. In many ways, we will be there to help the situation, because it'll give people an outlet to hopefully release some funds from horses that otherwise wouldn't be able to sell.
So, Mark, we've had a couple of questions from members. So we've had a lot of questions. So I'll try and put a few of them together.
Please don't make them too difficult, whatever you do, Dan.
What's going to win? No. So a couple of questions. One is, can you just explain a little bit about, you talk about the Irish, and sometimes we think about sort of point-to-point trainers as being people sort of doing it for a hobby because they enjoy it, they've got a couple of horses and they love to see it. But you're talking about an Irish industry where people are making a living out of buying horses that are young from the sales, looking to run them in point-to-points and then sell them on. And is that the industry that we're buying from?
Very much so. And when you say the Irish point-to-point model is completely different from the English point-to-point model. On the whole, 90% of English point-to-point trainers and owners, it's very much a hobby. It's absolute madness in many ways to own an English point-to-pointer. You're running around a field for £150. And to be fair to trainers, they can't charge much less than what a rules trainer charges, because ultimately he's got the same costs. It's very much, a hobby, and you have to have deep pockets to be an English point-to-point owner, and very much an enthusiast. Ireland, it's completely different. 95% of the people who own, train in Ireland, which tends to be the same thing as well, they have a lot more owner trainers. It is simply, it's their business. Horses are their commodity. I'll give you an example. Some of the bigger trainers, they would have 70, 80, 100 horses in training. Many that they'll own themselves or in syndicates, or they'll have a backer. One leading trainer at store sales, I think 18 months ago I looked, I think he spent best part of 1.7 million on store horses. So it tells you the amount of investment that goes into it. The difference is that if they can get a very good one, as we've seen recently, 2 pointers sold for 570,000 at public auction. I haven't heard of one that's been sold for any more privately, but it just shows you what the rewards are. There are plenty of horses out there from the Irish pointing field every year that go for 6 figures plus. There's many that 250,000 plus. You know, it's big money, but they spend big money to start off with, and they just look at it as a numbers game. There's going to be some at the bottom of the pile that may not even make the race course. You'd be shocked how many 40,000, 50,000 pound stores never see a race course and virtually get written off. They sort of work it on a business model as if 10% of what I buy is very good and 30, 40% of it is okay, they'll end up making a profit over the years. But fair play to the lads. You know, I don't think I could sleep at night with some of the figures that are involved. And, you know, again, the amount of staff, and you only need a little bit of bad luck, a virus, but I suppose it's a temperament. You know, that they're used to it. It's what they do. And they have plenty of success, but it's certainly a business out there. It's a completely different model. But again, my job is to try and find, let's say, those rough diamonds. Muldoon came from a very, very small point trainer. That's where his form was. I liked him the moment I saw him. It took me 6 months to buy him. And it took me a bad run to buy him. And that's, again, sometimes where I can strike. The money that some of these Irish pointers attract, we're never going to be able to buy them off the back of a good run, because there's too many people out there with, you know, with much, much bigger budgets who don't look at the overall picture. They just want a trophy on the mantelpiece, and they value it in a different way than what we do. And that's where, let's say, a lot of my groundwork is trying to find, say, the smaller trainer who I know trains them in a different way. Because there's certain yards, although they do have good horses, you know that when they go to the races first or second time out, they are doing their very, very best. And that trainer can get no more out of them at that present time than what they've got. Muldoon, he was just completely opposite. He was the proper blank canvas. And I always knew that somewhere along the line he'd improve. And that was no disrespect to the trainer. You just know that he actually was probably the 5% who didn't look at it as his livelihood. He actually enjoyed it. He was bred to a stallion literally down the road to him. He was his horse. He enjoyed training him. Wherever the horse ran or what he did, I can't say he didn't bother him, but as long as he came back safe and sound, he was happy. And they're the ones that you've really got to try and eke out. And then obviously he came out, I sold him to a friend of mine, and that's when I bought him again for Dr. Newland. So I knew his history, but I'm not looking for the 4-year-old point winner first time out, because the vast majority of them, pound for pound, end up as major, major disappointments. And now somebody will hit me with a stat that say that Gold Cup winners come from that pool. Maybe they do, and they're probably right, but there's an awful lot of horses that cost a lot of money that end up being very, very disappointing. So we just need to look elsewhere.
Well, I think that's right. You only need to look at a midweek race meeting anywhere and count the number of horses that cost 6 figures, and it's absolutely frightening. And that's why I think value is so important to us and to Foxtrot. And we've got so many questions about it, but let's just finish off with a couple just to finish with. And one that a lot of people have raised is about breeding and how important is breeding to you? And if it is, are there any stallions that you'd particularly look out for? You know, and are attracted by?
I'm probably a lot different from agents in the sense that breeding, believe it or not, is actually way down on my list. I I sort of firmly believe, because I buy horses that have run and have already shown what they can do, it doesn't really matter to me. Yes, breeding does pass on certain traits, maybe in terms of ground, distance, but it doesn't necessarily make them a good horse. There's so many good-looking, slow, beautifully bred horses knocking around that have cost so much money. And I think once you got them on a race course, by all means, yes, if they've had one run, it's very difficult to tell. But by the time you've had 2 or 3, their pedigree doesn't really help them a lot. And all it does, it tends to make them more saleable, but it certainly doesn't make them any more valuable. Of course, if you're buying a store horse that's never run, the only 2 things that you can go on is what it looks like and what its pedigree is, and what ultimately the chances are if it's got some good siblings or it comes out of a good mare. Yes, pound for pound, there's slightly more chance that it will make a better racehorse, but you're paying accordingly for it. I mean, I go back to Muldoon again. Raj is, well, he's like a private stallion. In reality, he covers the owner's mares, and he covers a few of his friends' mares, and that's it. I remember, again, going back to Dr. Newman, he said, "Who's this Raj?" And I was trying to explain he was unraced and, he had a decent pedigree, but he was right. It doesn't, but then I turned it on its head. Well, that doesn't actually matter who his father is. Would you actually want to buy him more if he was by presenting or by a walk in the park? It's not going to make him go any quicker. And funny enough now, I believe that Dr. Newland's now got a relative. So he's coming around to the Raj connection. Would I rush out to buy another Raj? It wouldn't stop me, but I'd want to see what it done on the racecourse. That's the primary thing for me. And I think sometimes people do get a bit carried away with pedigrees. If you go back in time and see some of the superstars of our game, many have got pedigrees that, for want of a better word, you wouldn't give 2 bob for. They're very, very light pedigrees. I think one of the best horses I've ever owned was a horse called General Wolf. He was second in the Scottish National. He won the Peter Marsh twice. He ran the Grand National 4 times. And the only winner in his pedigree in 4 dams was him and the sire, and his sire. And that's it. That was the only winner in 4 generations. So that's probably why I'm not a massive pedigree man. But I say, flicking it on its head, if you're buying a young horse that's unraced or only maybe had 1 run, it does come into play. But once they've had a few runs, it's sort of, its importance decreases.
No, that's really, really interesting, Mark. And let me finish off just by saying thank you very much for all your hard work, because I know we speak quite often and often have discussions about various horses. I take a lot of persuading, and I make sure you work very hard for your money. So thank you very much, because you found some great horses for us, and hopefully you'll find many more in future.
Well, thank you, Dan. It works both ways. I greatly appreciate the trust and the faith you've had in me. I say we'd never spoken until 18 months ago, so you put an awful lot of faith in me, and I know all the members have as well. And I say I greatly appreciate it, and hopefully going forward it'll work again. But just to say, very, very best of luck to everybody on the horses over the coming year. I think it's Tuesday, isn't it, Hogan's Heights? I'll be amazed if he don't get in. I think he only needs 4 or 5 to come out. If he doesn't get in the Grand National, I think your luck is out. You wouldn't be winning it anyway if you don't get in this year. But I say very, very best of luck to everybody. It's been a pleasure speaking to you all.
Brilliant. Well, Mark, thanks very much indeed for your time. Really is appreciated.
All the best. Enjoy your evening.
Great. Well, thanks very much to Mark and to everyone for joining us this evening. And Phil, you're absolutely right. Thanks very much to all those people that messaged and emailed me to tell me Grand National next elimination stage is Tuesday, the 23rd of March. He needs 8 horses to come out to get in. After that, the next elimination stage is Easter Monday, and then we're on to entries and declarations. So lots of opportunities for him to get in. And Phil, once he's in, you're the first person I will let know. Great. Well, thank you very much to everyone that joined us this evening. I hope you've enjoyed it. We had 2 hopefully very interesting guests, Charlie Hammond, the jockey, and Mark Gichero, who sources horses as a bloodstock agent. And hopefully you found our guests very interesting and entertaining. Now, I'm hoping that by the time that we are back in 2 weeks, we will have owners back on the racecourse, which we're all desperately looking forward to. It's been our best ever start to a year. We've had more winners than ever before at this stage of a calendar year. So I hope that you are enjoying being part of Foxtrot, and I really do appreciate you joining us this evening. Congratulations to Maracuja owners on another success, and look forward to hopefully keeping that Foxtrot winning streak going. Thanks again. Good night.
Thanks, Dan.